Greetings, my fellow freedom sovereign thinkers. This is LO3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swampy Mangoes of South Florida. And today's date is Sunday, October 29th, 2017. I'm at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, Suite 1 to be exact, along the New River of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, southwest corner of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. Whatever you do, please support the local shops. Even people living in the community, come around. Don't be shy. They're in the opposite. They're in the, I would say, the west end of the adjacent with Downtown Saloon, another historical landmark. Yeah, I've been out and about for the past 4 or 5 days. A couple faulty equipment. Some of it died on me, and I'm like, God, my goodness. So I got a plan to get some new equipment as soon as possible. I had a real low budget, but you know what? I can't complain. I may get annoyed once in a while, but you gotta laugh about it later. Hey, you win some, you lose some, correct? Absolutely. And I noticed too, a lot of folks out there are really talking about the Kennedy files, and some of it live has been redacted, and some interesting smoking guns in here as well. So it's not fully transparent, according to President Trump. So you got redacted information being deleted or blacked out. That's not being that's not full transparency. Okay, so you always got to read between the lines when it comes to these scenarios. And many of us, like-minded individuals out there, always say, hey, don't follow the hype, just observe responsibly. I know even my cousin, we talked about the Kennedy files. We're going to see how accurate it's going to be and all that. So I didn't really jump too much to the gun. However, I have seen a few areas which have some merit. So, there's the information sharing out there with the other folks that are questioning these areas. And of course, anti-New Order sites as well. So I'm going to be addressing a couple of articles here about the JFK files, assassination files. And, all right, well, before we start, so I'm actually going to be reading a couple of articles about the Kennedy assassination files, which is very interesting. This one came out today by Matt Agaris from Activist Post. I think he's from the Free Thought Project. Yeah, freethoughtproject.com. So, it says here, 5 ominous revelations from JFK files on CIA mind control, assassinations, the Mafia, and terrorism. As it reads here, on Thursday, much to the chagrin anyone of seeking transparency, the U.S. government released 2,800 previously classified files relating to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, while holding back several hundred more. President Trump delayed the release of the others, saying he had no choice but to consider national security, law enforcement, and foreign affairs concerns, raised mostly by the FBI and CIA. I'm sorry. Oh, well, you don't understand the pressure I'm in. Oh, my goodness. Oh, please, you gotta have another Uncle Tom in the White House. Oh, yeah, okay, make America great again. Help make America bend over again, right? Come on. I'm sorry, I had to use some sarcasm here. But I'm going to continue on. As TFTP predicted, the JFK files are no smoking gun. However, many of the documents contained in them revealed and confirmed the absolutely horrifying practices of the world's most insidious spying agency. An amazing act of citizen journalism, Thursday night, the internet poured over the documents, including all of our staff here at TFTP. The information gleaned from these previous top-secret documents revealed the dark truth about the CIA covert, murderous, criminal, and outright terroristic workings. From mind control to media control to working with the Mafia, using covert chemical weapons to starve innocent civilians. The CIA has operated in the shadows, breaking international law and laying waste to anyone who gets in their way. The Free Thought Project has put together a list of documents retrieved from the JFK files detaining these outright ominous practices by the CIA. 1. The CIA planned on using covert biological agents to cause massive crop failures in Cuba. in the midst of a meeting for Operation Mongoose. And you're going to have a lot of links here too, so please check them out to go further, okay, my friends? The group discussed usually using agricultural sabotage to terrorize the Cuban people and effectively starve an entire country. While CIA expressed concern over the operation, the concern was not about innocent human lives, only about getting caught. CIA was intent on producing crop failures by introducing biological agents which would appear to be of natural origin. The paper went on note they must avoid a massive chemical release unless they could completely cover up. This is what it says here on page 4 of the site. And it says here, the group has burned to a discussion of number 32, agricultural sabotage. General Carter emphasized the extreme sensitivity of any such operation and the disastrous results that would flow from something going wrong, particularly if there were obvious attributions to the U.S. He went on to say, however, that would be possible to accomplish this purpose by methods more subtle than those indicated in the paper. He mentioned specifically the possibility of producing crops. So that is one interesting area there, right? And below here, failure by the introduction of biological agents which would appear to be natural origin. Mr. Bundy said that he had no worries about any such sabotage, which include clearly be made to appear as a result of local Cubans' disaffection or of a natural disaster. But then we must avoid external activities such as release of chemicals, etc., unless they could be completely covered up. So this is more of like, let's do an act of war on the CIA's watch on the Cuban people. Ain't that pretty damn sick? I would say so. This is how these sons of bitches, parasites, operate. And people still want to defend these operations. You ought to be a damn shame of yourselves, all right? You probably be less patriotic than as far as I'm concerned. Excuse me, I just get a little bit insulted here, you know? 2, the CIA is a terrorist organization that not only encouraged terrorism and murder, but openly funded it. The CIA actually created a hit list menu of sorts with bounties listed for the murder of certain individuals. Leaflets will be designed to indicate phrases. For example, the first leaflet will contain only names of communist leaders. The next leaflet will revise the names by job, i.e. cell leader, informer, party members, etc. Any of the above or subsequent leaflets will announce the amount of the award, how and where it may be collected. One final leaflet may be deemed advisable. That one announcing a 0.02C reward for the delivery of casket. And it says here, number 5, the leaflets will be designed to indicate phrases. For example, it tells you all that right there. So it's all been like, parody here. And number 6, that's page 11A. The proposed price lists as is follows: informer, $20,000 to $5,000. B, cell leader, $40,000 to $10,000. So like max to minimum. C, block leader, $45,000 to $20,000. D, department head, $57,500 to $26,000. E, foreign communist, $97,000 to $47,000. And F, government officials, $100,000 to $55,000. And of course, G, Castro, which is 2 cents. So 2C award. So that is a lot more than Castro is a lot more than the government officials themselves. These same taxes were put to use in Afghanistan, which led to citizens turning in other innocent citizens just to receive a reward. Indeed, Gitmo was filled due to a very familiar approach. Yeah, assume, kind of, sort of, is the only way. That's what I tell folks for the past 15, 16 years since 9/11, when I said the war on terror is going to be a war with ourselves or the people around the world, rather it's foreign or domestic. So I will continue on here. C, the CIA worked with the Mafia to carry out various assassinations. On the first page of the archives, there were two glaring documents that were apparently unmarked, but quickly deemed top secret once information was noted inside them. In the documents, the CIA details various assassination plots against Fidel Castro beginning as early as the late 50s. It should be noted, it says here, that Mr. Edwards and Lawrence Hutz of Houston, then General Counsel of the CIA, briefed Mr. Kennedy again almost a year later on May 7, 1962, on the agency's contacts with the Mafia, beginning in August and September 1960 concerning Castro. This briefing was apparently initiated by the CIA. The relationship with Sam Giancana was discussed in detail. There is no indication that the Attorney General mentioned either the May 1961 memorandum from the FBI or the briefing he and General Taylor had received earlier year from Mr. Bissell. Mr. Edwards stated that Mr. Kennedy did not approve any of the actions. And below here's about Castro. As it says here, 1, as set forth in details earlier, elsewhere, the Central Intelligence Agency was involved in the assassination plots against Fidel Castro beginning as early as 1959 or 1960. This is during the Eisenhower days. These plans arose at approximately the same time as the preparations were underway for Bad Pigs. The plan involved a number of bizarre schemes and, at least one instance, involved some contact with organized criminal elements. Among the means considered were poison, botulism pills, and the use of Cuban exile groups. There is evidence to indicate that Alan Dulles was aware of these early efforts to develop plans to assassinate Castro and authorize them. It is unclear whether officials of the Eisenhower-Kennedy administration were aware of these early plans. According to CIA, the plans involved a number of bizarre schemes. Yep, I said it already, so. And actually, the guy is considered to be a... According to the CIA, the plans involved a number of bizarre schemes, and at least one instance involved some contact with organized criminal elements. This concept was the notorious Chicago mob boss Salvatore Mooney Sam Giancana. It should be noted that Mr. Edwards and Lawrence Houston, then General Counsel of the CIA, briefed Mrs. Kennedy again almost a year later on May 7, 1962, on the agency's contact with the Mafia, and it says the same thing again. Yeah, so it does say the same thing too, my friends, so I'm going to skip that, so go down a little bit more. About the whole thing, about the Mafia. Let me see here, I'm just got lost. It should be noted Mr. Edwards Lewis Houston, then General Counsel of CIA, briefed Miss Kennedy again almost a year later on May 1962 on the agency's contact with the Mafia, continuing in August and September 1960 concerning Castro. You got some customers out here, so it's okay. And I go here. Mr. Kennedy again almost a year later, May 7, 1962, on the agency's contact with the Mafia, beginning in August and September 1960 concerning Castro. This briefing was apparently initiated by the CIA in the relationship with Sam Giancana was discussed in detail. There's no indication the Attorney General mentioned in either May 1961 memorandum from the FBI or the briefing he and General Taylor had received a year earlier from Mr. Bissell. Mr. Edwards has stated that Mr. Kennedy did not approve any of the actions. Okay, so it sounds like a broken record, you know what I'm saying? Absolutely. So, it's interesting here, a really interesting document, and we're back. All right, cool. So, number 4, the CIA planned for anticipated and influencing human behavior with electronic signals. And one of the more omnibus documents titled Commission on CIA Activities within the United States, the CIA admits to numerous campaigns of propaganda and public deception. One bullet in particular deals with the CIA's involvement in research on techniques for influencing human behavior and on methods of protecting agency personnel against hostile use of drugs or brain-working techniques. As in attempting to influence individual human behavior wasn't threatening enough, the same bullet point mentions the testing equipment of measuring physiological responses in human subjects. For those familiar with the CIA's MK Ultra program, the above-mentioned techniques are shockingly telling to say the least. This is from number 18, okay? There's a very complex question which we have divided into 3 parts. 1, summary papers cover our involvement in research on techniques for influencing human behavior and on methods of protecting agency personnel against hostile use of available shortly in a separate folder. Another paper will cover development and testing of intelligence-related equipment and related research activities. All right? So, and it says here, including the testing of equipment to intercept conversations or electronic signals and the testing of overhead reconnaissance systems. A third paper will cover testing of equipment measuring physiological responses in human subjects. These, at least 2 papers, will be submitted as soon as possible. It sounds very familiar, like the Pavlov's dog theory. You know what I'm saying, my friends? It's something like, stimulus response. Boom. Part of public relations. I could say propaganda 101 by Eric Benez's playbook. So something you have to really look at. But there's links on here too, so please just do your homework and check this out. And here it says here, number 5, Operation Mockingbird. CIA-controlled media was thriving. Even when the CIA released its massive archive last year, tens of thousands of pages contained almost no information on the CIA's program to control the narrative in the media, otherwise known as Operation Mockingbird. And there's a link for that. There's some links here because, however, in 2 separate documents within the JFK files, the CIA admits to the program, and a congressman confirms that he's worried about the influence. I don't consider it noteworthy, however, that on November 30th, 1973, the Washington Star News reports the CIA employed some 40 journalists who doubled as undercover contacts. See article enclosed herewith. Further, on December 1st, 1973, the Washington Post carried a similar article, which is also enclosed. It is noteworthy that one of the journalists named in these reports is covering the Assassinations probe for one of our most widely read newspapers. While I'm a strong supporter and advocate of hard, factual news coverage, I am concerned that some of the news reports have been unfair without basis. Some of the reports, it seems, have been designed to discourage the probe by the House. I simply want to be certain that there is no connection between manner in which news is reported and the past relation of certain journalists to the CIA. So they try to cover everything up here, right? In regard to that, to what Congressman Walter E. Fauntroy was talking about at the time, the above-mentioned document titled Commission on CIA Activities in the United States may provide that answer, Operation Mockingbird. And it said, this is number 4 here. Summaries are being provided. Case of 2 newspapers reported is Mockingbird. Yours number 6. The TFTP predicted so far these documents very little change of the official story of how JFK was killed. However, they provide a glimpse into the agency who immediately works with the crime lords that killed heads of states. They expose programs of thought manipulation and brainworking. The documents don't tell us that it wasn't Oswald, but they do tell us that the CIA was capable of killing anyone, anywhere, and making it look like an accident. So they consider based on this, the CIA is considered a prime suspect. Well, if this is a secret, and unscrupulous organization was conducting operations 50 years ago, like ones listed above, you can only imagine how worse they have gotten since then. Perhaps one of the most important factors to consider in this torrent of information is that the very release of these documents could be part of this most unscrupulous practice of propaganda and mind control. Indeed, the Mockingbirds and mainstream media are already using the release of these documents to bash anyone who questions the official story. Well, We'll know our disinformation program is complete when every American believes it's false. William Casey, CIA director. Interesting. So so I see more to playing devil's advocate. And this is why you have to look at things a lot broader than what it is. You have to know the enemy's move. Sun Tzu said it the best about knowing your enemy to win many battles. And just paraphrase. Everyone has to need to be strategic. We know about the official story. It's very suspicious. But based on this particular, they got involved and they exposed themselves on past practices. So their credibility, with all sincerity, isn't all lovey-dovey. That's one of the reasons why I always look at things a lot broader than what it is. And question everything. Observe responsibly. Don't jump the gun. Try to do your own homework. I got to do these things myself. And I've been vindicated, to be very frank. And so we're going to hit this next one here. It came from Tyler Druden. And this one got reposted from Information Clearinghouse. This is titled, The One Paragraph You Need to Read from the JFK Assassination Files That May Change Everything. And of course, it came out yesterday by Tyler Durden, October 28th. Information Clearinghouse, TruePardon.com warns that one haunting paragraph unearthed from 3,000 never before seen documents will shake patriots to the core about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Or perhaps worse, making that haunting 3 paragraphs. This is not pretty. But it is likely that the President Trump understands what Kennedy comprehended, which now appears to have led to his murder. Out-of-control shadow government threatens the fabric and the future of the United States. See for yourself as a reminder in the position of the alleged shooter explained. There is a little memo here you can see for yourself that came out by the FBI on January 31st, 1964. And it was funny, right below this memo here, the last paragraph says it the best. Potito said the Surgeon General's report on the assassination stated the first bullet entered the president's throat below the Adam's apple, clearly showing that 2 persons were involved with the first shot being fired from the bridge across the parkway in the front of the car. To further substantiate this, Petito said there was a bullet hole in the windshield of the president's car. And so, go ahead for clarity. The Surgeon General reports the assassination of the first bullet entered the president's throat below the Adam's apple clearly shows that 2 persons were involved with the first shot being fired from the bridge across the parkway in front of the car. To further substantiate this, Petito said there was a bullet in the windshield of the president's car. Not exactly the narrative that was sold to the world, and certainly not the narrative that J. Edgar Hoover proclaimed must be defended to the world. Here is Douglas P. Horn via LouRockwell.com detailing on photographic evidence of a bullet hole in the JFK's limousine windshield hiding in plain sight. And so there's a link for that. You can see it for yourself. Now let's check that link out for a moment and see what we got. This came out in June 2012 to be exact. So June 4th. And you can see this link for yourselves. And it's pretty long, so definitely check that out. Lou Rockwell's site's very good too. Very liberty-minded, and some people, oh, well, he's supported by Austrian economics. It means the poor people could be condemned. Please, don't compare open free market to corporatism, okay, of capitalism, okay? I'm sick and tired of you bunch of parrots out there. Just, well, here, if someone says it, you go moo or bah. That's your response. You got to repeat it like everything else. That's for everyone out there. Do your homework. I don't care what side of paradigm you're on. Okay, I'm going to stop digressing. In 2009, I believe I had discovered new evidence in the JFK assassination never reported by anyone else. Convincing photograph of the through and through bullet hole in the windshield of the JFK limousine that had been reported by 6 credible witnesses. I revisit that evidence today, and I'm more convinced than ever that the bullet hole in the limousine windshield is what I'm looking at those images. But the readers of this piece do not have to take my word for it. You can examine images yourself and make up your own minds. The evidence contained in one of the banned suppressed episodes of Nigel Turner's The Men Who Killed Kennedy, episode 7 in the series Smoking Gun, was aired, and you have a link for that too, check it out yourself, was aired in 2003 and then removed from circulation by the History Channel in response to intense political pressure by former LBJ aides Jack Valente and Bill Moyers, probably imperialist whorebags. Did I say that politely? I'll tell you about the stunning evidence I have found in that episode at the end of this article, but we first need to set the stage by reviewing the eyewitnesses' testimony about the damage to the windshield observed the day of JFK's assassination on Friday, November 22nd, 1963, as well as 3 days later on Monday, November 25th, 1963, the introduction, before I reveal the details about the new photographic evidence I'm talking about here. Let's review the big picture. The evidentiary landscape on this issue. And there's pages on here, you can check it out yourself in the Assassination Records Review Board. 1. Dallas motorcycle patrolman Davis Ellis and H.R. Freeman both observed a penetrating bullet hole in the limousine's windshield at Parkland Hospital. Ellis told interviewer Jeff Toff, T-O-F-F, in 1971, there was a hole in the left of the front windshield. You could put a pencil through it. You could take a regular standard writing pencil and stick it through there. Freeman corroborating this saying, I was beside it and could touch it. It was a bullet hole. You could tell what it was. So Dave Lifton published those questions in his 1980 book Best Evidence. 2. In the St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter Richard Dudman wrote an article published in the New Republic on December 21st, 1963, in which he stated a few of us noted the hole in the windshield when the limousine was standing at the emergency entrance after the president have been carried inside. I could not approach close enough to see which side of the cup-shaped spot, which indicated a bullet had pierced the glass from the opposite inside. 3. Second-year medical student Avelia Ganges, enrolled at Southwestern Medical University in Dallas, right next door to Parkland Hospital, told attorney Doug Weldon in 1999 it was a real clean hole. In a videotape interview aired in suppressed episode of 7 of Nigel's The Men Who Killed Kennedy, titled Smoking Gun, she said it was very clear it was though through and through bullet hole through the windshield of the car from the front to the back. It seemed like a high velocity bullet that had penetrated from the front to back in that glass pane. At that time of the interview, Ganges had risen to the position of chairman of the Department of Surgery at John Peter Smith Hospital in Fort Worth. She has been a firearms expert in her adult life. Interesting there, right? Oh, yeah. 4. Mr. George Whitaker Sr., a senior manager at the Ford Motors Company's Rogue plant in Detroit, Michigan, told attorney and professor of criminal justice Doug Weldon in August 1993 in a tape-recorded conversation that after reporting to work on Monday, November 25th, he discovered the JFK limousine, a unique, one-of-a-kind item that he unequivocally identified in the Rhodes Plant B building, with the interior stripped out in the process from being replaced and with the windshield removed. He was then contacted by one of the vice presidents of the division of which he worked and directed a report to the glass plant lab. Immediately after knocking on the locked door, which he found most unusual, he was let in by 2 of his subordinates and discovered that they were in possession of the windshield that had been removed from the JFK limousine. They had been told to use it as a template to make it a new windshield identical to it in shape, and then go to the windshield back to the building B for the installation of the president's limousine that was quickly being rebuilt. Whitaker told Weldon, quoting from the videotape, the 1993 interview, and the windshield had a bullet hole in it. Coming from the outside, though, it was good. Clean bullet hole, went right straight through from the front. And you can tell when the bullet hits the windshield, like when you hit a rock or something, what happens? The back chips out, and the front may have a pinhole in it. In this, a clean round hole in front of the fragmentation coming out the back. Whitaker told Weldon that he eventually became superintendent of his division and was placed in charge of the 5 plant divisions. He also told Weldon that the original windshield with the bullet hole in it had broken up and scrapped as ordered after the new windshield has been made. When Doug Weldon interviewed Whitaker in August of 1993, his witness insisted of anonymity. Weldon reported on the story without releasing Whitaker's name in his excellent and comprehensive article, The Kennedy Limousine, Dallas 1963, which was published in Jim Fester's anthology, Murder in Dealey Plaza in 2000. After Weldon interviewed Whitaker in August of 1993, Mr. Whitaker subsequently, on November 22nd, 1993, the 30th anniversary of President Kennedy's assassination, wrote down all he could remember about the events he witnessed involving the presidential limousine in his windshield. After George Whitaker's death in 2001, his family released his written testament to Nigel Turner, who, with their permission, to reveal Mr. Whitaker's name, as well of his text memo of history in Episode 7 of The Men Who Killed Kennedy, The Smoking Guns. In The Smoking Guns, Whitaker's memo can be read on the screen employing freeze-frame technology with the DVD of the episode. It said in part, "When I arrived at the lab door, I was locked. I was let in, and that there were two glass engineers there. They had a car windshield that had a bullet hole in it. The hole was about 4 to 6 inches to the right of the rearview mirror, as viewed from the front. The impact had some from the front of the windshield. If you have spent 40 years in the glass illegible, you know which way the impact site was formed." 5. The six credible witnesses to the bullet hole in the windshield of the limousine was Secret Service agent Charles Taylor Jr., who wrote a report on November 27, 1963, in which he detailed his activities providing security for the limousine immediately after the car's return to Washington following the assassination. The JFK limousine and the Secret Service follow-up car, known as the Queen Mary, arrived at Andrews Air Force Base. Aboard a C-30 propeller-driven cargo plane at about 8 p.m. on November 22, 1963, agent rode in the presidential limousine and is driven from the Andrews Air Force Base to the White House garage at 22nd and M Streets, Northwest. In his report about what he witnessed inside the White House garage during the vehicle's inspection, he wrote, in addition, of the particular note was just a small hole just left of the center of the windshield from which what appeared to be bullet fragments were removed. Very similar, right? Oh yeah, so the lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone gunman, right? Oh my. But we're just going to go out here a little bit further on the summary of the eyewitness testimony about the windshield bullet hole. Summarizing the 6 credible witnesses: Stevie Ellis, H.R. Freeman, Richard Dudman, Avelia Glanges, George Whitaker, and Charles Taylor all reported seeing a bullet hole in the windshield of JFK's limousine either on the day of the assassination. For 5 of the 6 witnesses were on the following Monday. In case of Mr. Whitaker, who did not see the limousine in his windshield until he reported to work at the Ford Motor Company's world plant in Detroit on Monday morning, November 25, 1963. 2 of these witnesses, Avila Glanges and George Whitaker, were absolutely positive of the bullet causing the damage had been shot from the front, which had entered from the surface of the windshield and exited the inside surface. Why is it important? Because if true, the windshield bullet evidence alone disproved the lone assassin myth aggressively promoted by the U.S. government for 49 years now, since the accused assassin Lee Harvey Oswald was supposedly fired from above and behind the limousine as it traveled down Elm Street. It sounds like trying to do the same thing with the Stephen Paddock case, which that occurred in Vegas, right? Yeah, we call it. That's what I call my past episode, Gladioed in Las Vegas. It's a question mark. I will continue on here. The windshield evidence was twice switched out, substituted by the U.S. government. The windshield was in evidence today, as the National Archives is not the windshield that was in the presidential limousine on Elm Street in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. It simply cannot be. Why? Remember, according to George Whitaker Sr. of the Ford Motor Company, the original was destroyed per company's orders after it was used as a template to make the replacement November 25th, 1963. But as it gets much worse than that, the first replacement, the first replacement, that one installed by Whitaker, 2 lab technicians in Detroit, was damaged on the wrong side by an incompetent Secret Service organization, incompetent not only at protecting the 35th president, but also implementing a cover-up. Secret Service agent Roy Kellerman rode in the right front seat of the limousine in Dallas, testified before the Warren Commission on March 1964 when he examined the windshield, obviously the replacement installed by Whitaker's team in Detroit. On November 27th, it was smooth on the outside and damaged on the inside. This is consistent with damage caused by impact on the front side of the windshield. The safety glass exhibits damage on the opposite side from which it is struck. Researcher Robert P. Smith, as reported by Dave Lifton in Best Evidence, interviewed a Mr. Bill Ashby, crew leader at the Arlington Glass Company, who told Smith he removed the limousine's windshield in Washington, D.C. on November 27th. This occurred after Kellerman had felt the interior surface earlier that day and determined it to be the damage on the inside and smooth on the outside. The windshield at the National Archives today exhibits long cracks, not a through and through bullet hole, and it's damage on the outside, which is the opposite of what Kellerman noted by the physical examination on November 27th. Co-owner Wheeler Hess of the automotive firm Hess and Eisenhard in Cincinnati, Ohio, told Doug Weldon that his company also replaced the windshield in the presidential limousine and that the glass removed was standard safety glass consistent with what George Whitaker said his team reinstalled in the limousine in Detroit immediately after the assassination. Hess and Eisenhart replaced by the standard safety glass with the special bullet hole resistant glass made by the Pittsburgh Plates Glass Company. Presumably, the windshield removed by his Hess Eisenhart was the second new windshield installed by the Arlington Glass Company on November 22, 1963, is one in the National Archives today. Mr. Hess told Weldon that the windshield his company removed was not damaged at the time it was removed. How chilling is that, my friends, right? Absolutely. The clear implication here is what the windshield in the archives today, which exhibit the cracks but not a bullet hole, was intentionally damaged by someone involved in the cover-up. In bold print, after it is removed by Hess and Eisenhart. All right, now we'll go about the next paragraph here. This distressing and depressing tale to cover up deceit and deception mirrors was going on with the JFK medical evidence, namely the president's cranial wounds and throat wound in the autopsy photographs and x-rays, and the Zapruder film during the weekend following the assassination that is alteration and gross substitution. The pattern is the same, and the pattern is one of lying and intentionally covering up the truth by destroying some evidence and substituting ultimate evidence in its place. All of the substitution of evidence, tampering with wounds prior to the commencement of the autopsy through callous and post-mortem surgery, the alteration of some of the key autopsy photographs and x-rays, and destruction of others, and the alteration of the Zapruder film was all intended to suppress evidence of shot from the front, i.e. proof of conspiracy. So the government could more easily promote the lone assassin cover story, right? And the U.S. government later suborned perjury in the matter of the damage to the limousine windshield. Unfortunately for Mr. Charles Taylor of the Secret Service, he, like Galilei, before the Inquisition in November of the 17th century, was forced to recant, for he had committed heresy when he wrote his official report on November 27th that he had observed a bullet hole in the windshield of the limousine as the car was closely examined in the house garage in the evening of the assassination in 1963. In his 1976 recantation, after he prepared for the House Select Committee on Assassinations, Taylor indicated that he changed his mind after examining the windshield stored in the archives on December 19, 1975. Like Galileo, which prompted by his inquisitors, Taylor reversed himself, saying, "I never examined this apparent hole on November 22, 1963, to determine if there had been any penetration of the glass, nor did I even get a close look at the windshield in a well-lighted surrounding." This is hardly credible. S.A. Kinney drove JFK's limousine from Andrews Air Force Base to the White House garage on November 22, 1963, and Taylor was the only passenger. The backseat bench, as revealed by horrifying color photographs taken in the White House garage, was still covered with gore. So we know Taylor did not sit there admixed in blood and brain tissue, and it's most doubtful that he sat in one of the uncomfortable jump seat in the middle of the car. Surely he sat in the front seat of the limousine all the way from Andrews Air Force Base to the garage where it was examined that evening, an ideal spot for noticing the bullet hole in the windshield, which would have been within arm's reach for him. Inevitably, when the interiors of the car was disassembled that evening inside the White House garage by FBI and the Secret Service agents working together, the light must have been on for this crucial joint inspection. Taylor reported on their activities in detail in this report prepared on November 27, 1963. The report makes clear that the agents could see what they were doing in the context considered Taylor's written statement and his 1976 HSCA affidavit about 13 years later, in which he stated, "I have no doubt that the cracks in the windshield placed in the archives and in official photographs, crack in the inner layers of the glass only, are the ones I noticed on the trip from Andrews Air Force Base. It is clear to me that my use of words whole to describe the flaw in the windshield was incorrect." And there's Guinness. Hello. Taylor sworn was incorrect. Taylor sworn in affidavit 1976, shortly after he was asked by someone in the government to examine the switch-out windshield deposit in the archives, only can be viewed, described for what it was, perjury. I wouldn't be surprised if Agent Taylor was threatened, him or his family, threatened his family as well. That's why, in my view, he may have been recanted. So I'm critical of his statements, but I can't really jump to conclusions to why. But I wouldn't be surprised if those scumbags did that to him. So it's one thing you have to always examine, my friends. And right here too, previously known photographic evidence of a windshield bullet hole. As I documented in Chapter 15 of my book, it's the Assassination Records Review Board, the famous Altgens photo taken on Elm Street, the ones reported to be the equivalent to Zapruder, frame 255 in the extant film, appears too many who study to show a bullet hole in the windshield, and some of the versions of that photograph have been published, namely in The Torch's Past, which is a link for that too, 1964, page 16, and Grodin's Killing the President, on pages 30 and 36, and on page 314 of Traska's Pictures of the Pain. All links, you can see it for yourselves. And the version of Fessa's Murders in Delay Plaza on page 149, the apparent bullet hole, directed by many viewers in the Outgen's photo appears to be just to the right of the rightmost edge of the rear view mirror as seen from the front, but there is another Algen's photo taken on Elm Street showing Jackie Kennedy on the trunk of the limousine after the assassination, which also shows damage in the area of the windshield that is left of the center as seen from the inside the car. Frustratingly, the damage seen in this photograph appears to be some cracks emanating from a frosted white area of the windshield that is left of center. It is mostly clear in that the torch is passed on page 17. In my view, that it is unclear whether we're looking at a round bullet hole with two cracks emanating from it or simply cracks. The poor quality versions of the image published in The Killing of the President on page 42 and in Pictures of the Pain page on page 316 are useless in resolving this issue. So that's an opinion. Therefore, any additional photographic evidence captured in the day of the assassination might prove divisive in resolving the windshield debate once and for all, which leads back to the headline of the journal entry, photographic evidence of bullet hole in JFK limousine and windshield hiding in plain sight. So, a lot of interesting stuff here, I know it's taking a little bit long, but sorry about that. But this is like some long information here, and I'll be right back to finish the rest. Okay, so we're going to continue on here. Hiding in plain sight since 2003. On pages 1473 to 1474, on volume 5 of my book, in chapter 16, I wrote the circumstances in which the History Channel in 2003 were forced to by political pressure and by a threat of legal action to stop airing the remarkably popular 7th, 8th, and 9th episode of the series, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, Smoking Guns, The Love Affair, and The Guilty Men. Not only did the History Channel agree to stop broadcasting the 3 episodes, which were getting very high ratings, but it also pulled all the DVDs from stores. They were selling like hotcakes and agreed to stop selling the 3 episodes, which were packaged together in the 2-disc, 3-episode A&E network video product titled The Men Who Killed Kennedy, the Final Chapter, which is catalog number AAE-71255. Thanks to Phil Singer of Chicago, I own a set of these 3 band DVDs. See, my friends, that's why I'm not really fascinated with the History Channel to the core. Oh, I've seen this show on the History Channel. Who the hell cares? How accurate is the damn thing? See, when you see stuff like this, they get rid of it. They just build it up, and when the face goes bend over, they went, how far, please? So this is why I hate watching the Idiot Box. Not only the former LBJA's Jack Valente and Bill Moyers engaged in a high-profile publicity campaign against the History Channel, but enraged Jack Valente, who had been long chief lobbyist in the nation's capital for the motion picture industry, summoned the executive producer of episodes 7, 8, and 9, including the LGBT episode The Guilty Men, Dolores Gavin, to Washington, D.C., where she was given the Valente treatment, i.e. browbeaten and intimidated in private in a rather brutal fashion. I was informed of this by a Hollywood-based professional who had worked with her on the project. Dolores Gavin herself was the source of the information. Shortly afterwards, the History Channel succumbed to this overt censorship, and all 3 episodes were added to a new 21st century index asparagus. The presumptive cause of this holy edict of the American establishment was the LGBT episode, The Guilty Men, which fingered Lyndon Baines Johnson with the involvement in the Kennedy assassination conspiracy. But in retrospect, I now wonder if perhaps the real principal, but acknowledged, cause of the suppression was actually the episode titled Smoking Gun. The LBJ episode, excuse me. You know what B stands for? Backstab. May have simply been the excuse to ban the smoking guns, for this episode contains multiple evidentiary proofs of a U.S. government cover-up of the Kennedy assassination evidence. The stunning content of the smoking guns. There is some B-roll in the smoking guns episode, only a little over 2 seconds long, which definitely appears to show the bullet hole in the limousine windshield. And through bullet hole described by 6 credible witnesses cited above. This shown during the segment of the program in which Avelia Glanges was interviewed, and this B-roll footage appeared between the times of 1402 and 1404 of the DVD and consists of a total of 84 video frames. There are 30 video frames per second in the U.S. television broadcast. I can attest to that because I did broadcasting, TV production while I was in high school. I could attest to that. And black and white images appear to come from standard 16mm black and white newsreel footage taken by a stocky man wearing a hat who had approached the presidential limousine and was parked outside the Parkland Hospital emergency room. And before the bobble top was installed, the point of view of the camera that was someone sitting in the limousine, or rather standing beside it, to the right side. The camera is pointed at the inside surface of the windshield from behind. This is the POV. One man in a suit and tie and can be seen standing in the front side or forward of the windshield. And 2 DPD motorcycle patrolmen, and they are Ellis and Freeman. That's a question mark. Can be seen leaning in and examining the windshield. What looks to me through a bullet hole is visible in all 4 video frames, left of the center on the windshield, adapting the POV of the camera, and approximately halfway down the top. Although there are only rough approximations, the location appears to be entirely consistent with what described by Charles Taylor and George Whitaker above. I wish to make something very clear here. You cannot access the images that I'm describing above in the YouTube segment in which episode had been put on the internet. First timing is different in the YouTube segment 1308 by 1402 because the YouTube segment was copied from the broadcast. The factory DVD location of the clip is a later point in the program at 1402 because of advertising material inserted at the beginning of the DVD. The second inside of the YouTube presentation is so small on one computer screen, and the resolution is so poor in comparison in the big screen HD television that you can't forget seeing this windshield bullet hole on YouTube. The viewer needs a factory-produced DVD and a good DVD player with functioning frame-by-frame advances in a big screen high definition, which 1080p TV. The bullet hole show clearly up on my 52-inch Sony Bavaria television, so anyone concerned with doing research here simply must attain the factory-produced DVD. Now, in the doubt of the lone nutter crowd, both those who are in denial of the reality of an American Cool 1963 because they can't handle the truth, the U.S. government's third-party surrogates in the midst of the research community, whose job is to cast an all-new research pointing to conspiracy and cover-up, will react violently to this essay. And that is predictable, but you don't have to listen to their opinions. Examine the evidence for yourself and make up your own mind. Just obtain a factory-produced DVD of the Smoking Guns by hook or crook or eBay. Put it in your DVD player and go to the specified time of 1402 in the program and examine the 84 frames at one time on a HD big screen TV. You will find that video frames 1, 15, 31, 37, 47, 59, 71, the best depict the bullet hole. The 16mm camera was handheld, so there was some motion and some blurring of the images And that's why some video frames are more clear than others. In my opinion, the best frames are 1 and 71 in the windshield sequence. Then consider how dangerous this 2 seconds of the B-roll footage is to the U.S. government's contrived position on the assassination as we approach the 50th anniversary of President Kennedy's assassination. A through and through hole in the limousine windshield made a frontal shot traveling from back to back, and a George Whitaker and Evelyn Glanges all by itself demolishes the lone myth. Excuse me here, gotta do a little change around here. Still perpetrated by the U.S. government and by its surrogates in the mainstream media in America. No wonder the establishment in America felt this episode had to be suppressed. And consider the other reasons for suppression. This episode also features David Mantik, MD, PhD, eloquently and clearly discussing his conclusion based on his 9 visits to the National Archive to view the autopsy materials. That the autopsy photographs of the rear JFK's head are photographic forgeries. It also features some USIA photographer Joe O'Donnell discussing how the White House photographer Robert Knudsen showed him 2 sets of post-mortem photos of JFK's head wounds in late 1963, one that consisted of authentic pre-alteration images showing the true entry and exit wounds in the head, an entry wound high in the right of the forehead and a large exit wound in the right rear of the skull. And another set of images with the pulse alteration with the entry wound high in the forehead no longer visible on the back of the head, seemingly intact. It also features Dr. Gray Allegar, MD, discussing in convincing terms G. Roberts Blakely's suppression of the content of the interviews of HSCA conducted with the John F. Kennedy autopsy witnesses, and Blakely's intentional misrepresentation of the contents of those interviews. In the HSCA's report, the JFK Records Act resulted in the premature release of the suppressed autopsy witness interviews in 1993, and the big lie of the HSCA report was exposed. The HSCA report in Volume 7 stated that all the Dallas doctors had to be wrong about the exit wound they recall in the back of the JFK's head, since all the autopsy witnesses the HSCA had interviewed said the wounds they observed matched autopsy photos, which shows the back of the head intact. The release of the interview report was in 1993 revealed that the HSCA had lied about those witnesses had said. All this and more was presented in one key episode. So ask your friends, go on eBay, one way or another, get your hands on the banned episode, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, titled The Smoking Guns. See the bullet hole in the windshield yourself, then compare it to the photographs of the windshield in the National Archives and ask yourself what the sorry episode said about the integrity of our national government. President Kennedy was killed in Dealey Plaza by a crossfire, meted out by shooters firing from multiple directions from both the front and behind. Therefore, he was felled by a conspiracy by definition. The windshield bullet hole evidence all by itself proves a conspiracy, and its clumsy, unsuccessful suppression all by itself is proof of a government cover-up of the facts in the President Kennedy assassinations. The U.S. government controlled all of the windshield evidence. The facts contained in this tale prove that we had a coup in America in 1963, and that powerful and influential people were still covering up in 1975, and 76, and 79, and in 2003. Former CIA Director William Colby once said that everyone of any significance in U.S. media was owned by the CIA. I believe it. Otherwise, this windshield nonsense would have been exposed long ago on a show like 16 Minutes. I have expressed here my strong opinion about what is shown in the 84 video frames visible in this documentary. A good follow-on step here would be obtain the original 16mm camera footage, presumably in the black and white negative, not some generational stock footage, perform a high-resolution digital scan of the film frames in Hollywood, and have them analyzed by motion picture professionals in the industry who have no axe to grind. Not by Gary Mack, but at the Sixth Floor Museum, who has never been to film school or worked on the motion picture industry, or by any member of the JFK research community who has espoused a conspiracy cover-up in the assassination. A true third-party independent analyst of the negative camera on the earliest surviving generation of this newsreel footage would be a good step in the process of evaluating these images. I have sounded the alarm here. I'm not afraid of a truly independent third-party analyst, and let's do a little honest here. Let the chips fall where they may. Douglas Horne made that statement, and I don't blame him one bit. It is going to come out little by little. Like I said, my friends, you're always going to expect discrepancies in these files, especially all the redacted information. So I'm not really too surprised. But yes, always been convinced it's a cover-up, an inside job, the New World Order umbrella, which CIA is part of it as well. Just another example why this tyranny has to end. 54 years. It's going to be 54 years on November 23rd. How long will this hold of this cover-up? It's gonna slip and fall right through the cracks of their fingertips. And it will bleed eternally. So everyone has an obligation to check out the video, see it for yourself, and share with everyone you know. That's what the information war is all about, my friends. We all have an obligation to get involved one way or the other. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout the social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you send something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your comments or correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Streams Network, Scene.lifeminds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/McGregor3rd. If you want to be my patron, donor, supporter, and all that, you can hit me on Gab, which is like a free speech version of Twitter, at gab.ai. Furthermore, you can email me at lookyluck3@gmail.com, or to the encrypted ones, lookylucknumbers03@protonmail.com. All right, my friends, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that demoniac resistance helps for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.